10 albums Greg Prato cannot live without. You
And I just
have,
want to interrupt. Of course, as soon as I sent you that list, I automatically thought about another five more I
yeah.
should have added. So, yeah.
All right. Do you
Yeah.
have the list in front of you or shall I read it
I don't have that list
for
in
you?
front of me, so if you just want to, we can go one by one, and I'll
There you
just
go.
tell
Yeah.
you a few sentences for each
Yeah. Now
if
you
you
didn't, I don't think you ranked them 10 to 1, right? Or they
I
just kind
didn't.
of,
Yeah, I could tell you that the one album I would feel comfortable putting at number one. Should I just start off with that one,
yeah.
or
Which one?
all right, Blind Melon Soup?
Nice. Number
We've
one.
talked a lot about that. That's an album that I don't know. Like, part of me is always like I'm always like a dark horse type of guy when it comes to movies and music and stuff like that. So a lot of people look at Blind Melon as a one-hit wonder, and they think they didn't really dig deeper because sadly Shannon Hoon died too young. But their second album is an album, Soup, it's called, came out in 1995. It's an album that I could listen. I've been listening to it pretty steadily since 1995, and I never get sick of it. And just, yeah, it was just a work of art. And I know
The
from the
most
past that I
underrated
just,
band to come out of the
yes,
90s.
I agree. So that one I would say just, I know that there's been a lot of other albums that have been more influential and have sold more, but that to me is just Greg Prato's number one
That's Greg Prato's
album.
number
But
one,
I
ladies and
actually
gentlemen.
remember some of the ones. I also went with Queen 2 was also on there, right?
That's in there.
Queen 2 because that's again another dark horse type thing that's probably one of Queen's lesser known albums. That and probably Hot Space are probably two lesser known and also least selling albums, but it's like their most heavy, darkest, proggy, fucked up sounding album.
I got to listen to that.
Um,
I don't know if
there's
I've ever
songs
listened to the
that
whole
like
thing.
yeah, I was gonna say similar Blind Melon Soup and Queen 2. It's an album you could listen to from start to finish. It's a whole entire work of art type
What were the
thing. And also
singles
with
from there?
Seven Seas of Rye.
Oh, okay. Which is a
Yeah, but then
freaking great
there's
song.
great songs like I love the song called Father to Son.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's a Brian May lead
that's a
vocal
Brian
song.
May song. There's also a song called Ogre Battle, which
Yep.
Paul Diano of Iron Maiden once told me he thinks that is the first ever thrash metal song.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that was written totally by Freddie Mercury. So that's what makes Queen such a fantastic band is they offered us a huge. I mean, think of Freddie Mercury writing their heaviest song over Battle, then also writing Crazy Little Thing Called Love and writing the disco-y parts of Hot Space like Body Language and it's he definitely covered a huge and of course gospel with Somebody to Love. That's what makes Freddie Mercury such a force to be reckoned with artistically.
Most
And then
versatile band in rock too. Songwriting. All four guys, each of them had a number one single
yeah,
on
yeah,
one chart or another.
right. And then from that on, if you want to start naming the albums, because I kind of forget which ones I
Yeah, let's
also.
see. You got Soundgarden, Super Unknown.
Yeah, I always go
Uh,
between Super Unknown and also Bad Motorfinger.
yeah,
But yeah, so really it depends on the day. I alternate between those two. But Bad Motorfinger, I like the sound, the I think production of it more.
yeah, yeah. I try to
It's
ask
more
myself like,
full.
what if there's an album that you just couldn't live without, like if somebody said to you, you can never listen to this again. That's kind of the mindset I went into going with this list. Meat
Okay.
Puppets, Up on the Sun.
Yes, a lot of people would go with Meat Puppets 2, and their best selling album is the one called Too High to Die, which is a great album, which
Yeah.
I later did a book with the Meat Puppets and I borrowed that title. It's called Too High to Die, Meet the Meat Puppets.
Oh, cool. That
That's what that's
has
called. But
Backwater.
yeah, that was
On.
yes, yeah. That
That
has
was
Backwater.
the hit. Yeah. Van
And
Halen, Fair Warning.
yes, Van Halen, Fair Warning, yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course I was tempted to go with the first Van Halen, but I figured why not go with one that is the more uncommon selection. So I went with
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair Warning because yeah, that's just I love the I don't know I tend to like dark albums like dark sounding albums whether it
Yeah.
be Queen 2 or Fair Warning or Blind Melon Soup definitely has its dark moments.
You're right.
Yeah.
Devo, Freedom of Choice. That's an
I love
interesting
it.
one.
Devo is one of my all-time favorite bands. Again, similar to Kiss. A lot of people can't look past the whole flower pot thing and their zany outfits, but a lot of their lyrics are very, very thought-provoking, and they also have a sense of humor, which is great about what they did. Very visually stimulating, especially for that time. Groundbreaking when it comes to also music video. They're one of the first bands to do interesting music videos. But yeah, that album though, Freedom of Choice, that has the song "Whip It," which everyone knows.
Oh, okay.
But my two favorite Devo songs are the title track from Freedom of Choice, which is great, and also Girl You Want, which Soundgarden later did a fantastic cover of. So,
Cool. Cool. Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous. Is this the one with Huey Lewis?
yes, yes, it is. Yes,
Oh, I love
that
it.
is it. Yeah, he comes out and he plays harmonica on a song called Baby Drives Me Crazy. But
He
Thin
was in a
Lizzy,
band called Clover. I think they
Clover,
were opening for
Clover.
Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually interview again, I'll just keep tooting my horn. I interviewed Huey Lewis a few months
Ah,
back,
that's
I believe,
cool.
for Song Facts, and I
How's he
asked him about.
doing? Is
He's doing
he?
good, but sadly, I don't know if he can perform anymore though because of his hearing
Yeah, I was
loss.
hoping maybe
Like,
he
I
was
don't
going to
know.
give you some good news on that front.
Yeah, no, it seems like he says without his hearing aids, he's totally deaf. Yeah, but
Mm,
in fact, he said he was doing the interview with me because he has a hearing aid that has a Bluetooth connection in it. So he's
yeah,
doing the interview. He could hear me in his hearing aid through Zoom or whatever. That's how we were doing the interview.
man.
But just to get back quickly to
Yeah,
the
did
Thin
that
Lizzy
Thin Lizzy
album,
album.
the live renditions of a lot of those classic tracks, I think, are better than the studio ones. And I just want to quickly jump back to Meat Puppets Up on the Sun for people that aren't that familiar with that. It came out in 1985, and it's a very unique sounding album. It's like very psychedelic sounding. There's clean guitar, but it's like psychedelic Hendrixy type weird stuff. I think they did that. They may have done that album while high on LSD. I could be wrong though, or
Wow.
possibly acid, one of those drugs. But it's fantastic. Kurt Kirkwood is a highly underrated guitarist, very original, was a huge influence on a lot of the grunge bands like Soundgarden and Nirvana. The only thing I will warn you about that album is, as a vocalist, he kind of warbles in and off of key, but that never stopped David Lee Roth, right?
It never did. It never
So,
did.
so there you go.
And now you got me thinking, maybe I should do a podcast episode while on LSD.
Yeah.
Have you ever written an article while on
No,
LSD?
no. I...
Kids, don't try this at home.
Yeah.
King's X, Gretchen Goes to Nebraska.
Yeah, one of the most underrated bands of all time. I did a book of them, King's X, called King's X: The Oral History, which came out a few years back. Yeah, that was an album came out in 1989, very original. 1989 was just when hair metal was phasing out and we were turning into alternative and grunge and everything. And that album really sounded like nothing else at the time. It's soulful. It has Beatles elements, it has prog elements, heavy elements, acoustic elements. If you're not familiar with that album, give it a listen. The production is maybe a touch dated, but it's still great songwriting, great playing. I think if you're not familiar with it, definitely listen to it.
Jimi Hendrix, Axis Bold as Love.
Again, the obvious selection is probably Are You Experienced, but Axis Bold as Love is just a very interesting sounding album. Once interviewed Steve Vai, and he said that he picked up his whole chord vocabulary by listening to that album. And if you listen to that and listen to a Steve Vai song such as Sisters, you can definitely connect the dots between a lot of like octaves and clean guitar, very interesting guitar tones. And again, I don't think there's really a true hit song on that album. Probably like Little Wing is the best known song. I think on the first Jimi Hendrix album I ever had was Smash Hits. I don't think there was one single song off of Axis Bold as Love on that best of album, but fantastic album. That's all I'm gonna say
Yeah.
about it.
The Pretenders, their
Yes.
self-titled debut, I'm assuming. That's the first album.
Yes. One of the most underrated guitarists of all time is James Honeyman Scott. Very, very interesting guitar style.
The late great.
Yes, late great. One of my favorite guitar solos of all time is on the song called "Tattooed Love Boys." He has a break, a right in the middle of a guitar solo. That's fantastic. It's almost like a David Gilmour type thing where he's giving you like a phrase, stops. He's giving you almost like phrase that are like easily to digest, kind of. So if you're not familiar with
Cool.
that, listen to that song, "Tattooed Love Boys." That's a great song. And also Chrissy Hine is a underrated lyricist, and I think she's a great artist overall. So I give her nothing but praise.
Yeah, I'm a Pretenders hits fan, so I know all the songs from on the radio and the
Right.
best of and all that stuff. So I should really listen to some
I,
more of the
I
Pretenders. I'll start
reviewed
with
their
that one.
latest album. Like I reviewed their latest album, and I kind of drop off after their first two albums, but their latest album was surprisingly strong.
Okay,
I have to give them credit for that.
cool. Now you have an
Yeah.
honorable mention because that's 10, but you did add
Yeah.
one for good luck, which is AC/DC Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap.
Yeah, because Bon Scott, if I have to go with my top three vocalists of all time, I gotta go with Freddie, Chris Cornell, and Bon Scott are probably my top three.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, there's something just special, unique about yeah, I was thinking so crazy. Think about the late 70s and especially early 80s, all the great bands. You had AC/DC with Bon Scott, you had Van Halen with David Lee Roth, and then
Wha-
you had albums coming out that like are kind of forgotten, like Billy Squire, Don't Say No. That
Yeah.
album is absolutely phenomenal. If you go back and listen to that. The Cars' first album was phenomenal.
Oh, it's like the
You have
greatest
Cheap
hits.
Trick. Yeah, you have Cheap Trick at Budokan. It's one of the greatest live albums. But let me just quickly throw out some albums that I could not fit on the list. We have Faith No More, Angel Dust. I wish could have been
Mm.
on that list.
Midlife
Mark,
crisis.
Mark Lanigan Bubblegum is a great album. Could have been on that list. Cheap Trick at Budokan. I would have loved to have added to that list. Um, yeah, there's just
That's
albums.
14.
Yes.
He
There's just
cheated.
so many albums you could have. I could have added Kiss Alive. Yeah,
Oh
I mean
yeah.
yeah, the just keeps going and going the list.
Well, that's the thing that made it hard for me is
Mhm.
some of these bands, there's a few bands that I could just pick so many, but I just picked just one. So here's my top
What
10.
let's what is your favorite Van Halen album? Go ahead. Start with that.
Yeah, my
Just
personal
one, just one.
if I had to pick just one, which is on the list here, it's got
Okay.
to be 1984.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
if
I
I
mean
had
that's
to just
also the
pick
first.
one,
Yeah.
there's a connection to it. Personally, it's the first Van Halen song I ever heard was "Jump." I remember seeing the video like it was yesterday. I can even see
Right.
it in my head, being in the living room, 12 years old,
Right.
and then finally hearing the whole album and just being blown away by it.
Right.
And then years later, listening to it, going back and listening to it again when I became like a real so it would have been like in 88, 89, I started to just
Okay.
invest all of my time into Van Halen. Each week I would take the money I got from my part-time job and buy another
All right. Yeah.
album or cassette.
Right.
And when I listened to 1984, including those two badass tunes, House of Pain and Girl Gone Bad, it was like, okay, this shit is awesome. So I have to go with that one, even though I've said the story a zillion times. 5150 is the album that turned me on to Van Halen, but 1984 is just that's the band just to me on all cylinders. And it's a short album.
Yeah.
It's not a long
A lot
album.
of their albums are short. Isn't like Van Halen 2 barely over 30 minutes long?
Right.
Yeah.
And surprising because Van Halen's my favorite band, it's not number one on my list. So I'll go
Okay.
10-1.
Good.
So we start at number 10, U2 Joshua Tree.
Okay.
Okay. I actually bought that at Strawberries with a gift certificate, Christmas gift. And I got that one, Tattoo You. And there was a third one in there, but those are the two that I remember most. And Joshua Tree is to me perfect.
Okay.
Pearl Jam 10. That's
Oh,
number
there you
9.
go.
Yep. And I could have picked Nirvana's Nevermind, but
That's an album I could have put into you.
right. But
Yeah.
at that period, I gravitated more towards Pearl Jam.
Uh-huh.
I'm still such a huge fan. I love Nirvana, but it was 10 that kind of got my attention first.
Right. Okay.
The Police, Ghost in the Machine.
Okay. Yeah, I love Zenyatta Mandata is probably my favorite.
There isn't
Yeah,
one bad album that they made, not
I
one.
agree.
So that's
I
why it was
agree.
hard to pick. But this one, just like you were saying, it's a little dark. It's got a dark edge to it.
Yep.
Speaking of Tattoo You, that I put as number 7, the Rolling Stones,
Okay.
Tattoo You. It's not
Okay.
a lot of the Stones fans that say it's not an official album because it was kind of like recycled songs, but whatever, it's awesome.
Right.
Again, going back to the dark theme, The Cure, Disintegration, number 6. Are you a Cure
Okay.
fan at all?
It's a band that I have a lot of respect for. My wife is a huge Cure fan, and she'll
Cool.
play me stuff, and I'm like, yeah, this is actually pretty interesting. And I always mean to go back and listen to them, but I have yet to them, and also Depeche Mode are two bands that I'll hear stuff there. I'm like, oh, this actually sounds pretty good. But back in the 80s, I was knee deep in heavy metal, so I didn't
Right.
really listen to
Yeah,
stuff like
Disintegration is their masterpiece, and it was like 91. My roommate was a big alternative rock fan. He played the CD for me, and I was like mesmerized. So
that. Okay.
that's a must. Number 5, AC/DC Back in Black.
Okay.
Do I even need to explain why?
Yeah, that's a perfect
I
album,
mean,
pretty
it's
much.
perfect.
Yeah.
Now, Martin Popoff's not going to be happy with this choice. Def Leppard Hysteria.
Ah,
Martin's famously known for panning that album, but I
okay.
think it's fucking awesome. I love it. It's pop rock perfection.
Yeah.
I love the production, just the sound that is the '80s rock sound. I just love it. Uh,
Do you agree that the Kiss song "Read My Body" is a shameless ripoff of "Pour Some Sugar on
oh
Me"?
hell yeah. Oh, of course. I don't even know. Have they ever admitted to that? I mean, yeah,
Never.
it has to. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know.
That's one of the worst Kiss songs ever. But we're getting to Kiss. We're getting to Kiss next, number 3 on
Okay.
the list. And now I could have gone with Alive because I know I get it. That's such a huge album. But Alive 2, for
Okay.
me, I love. Not only do I love the songs on it, but there's a story behind it. When I was 7, I
Mhm.
think maybe 7 years old. This is like '79. A friend of mine who lived on the street was a huge fan, and from what I recall, and he had all the albums, and I think he just kind of played them so much, and they got so beat down, he just replaced them with a whole new set. So he said, "Here you go," and he handed me a stack of Kiss albums,
Oh, wow.
and on top was Alive 2. And you open that gatefold, and that's that. You
Yeah.
see the stage with the fire and all that, which
Yeah.
you hear later was not. It was a staged
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
effort, but
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Right.
All the fire and the sparks going off, and then you got the pictures of Gene with a he's all sweaty with the
Yeah.
blood coming down.
All right.
So Alive 2 and Rocket Ride's on there. Larger Than Life. I think you have that as one of your songs in the book on the unknown Kiss tracks. Might be
I
in
think
there.
so. Yeah.
Larger
I'm
Than
pretty
Life.
sure. I'm pretty sure larger
All
than life.
American Man is on that.
Yeah.
So those studio tracks are awesome. And then I have Van Halen 1984. Okay, number 1. The one album that I could not live without, Dark
Okay.
Side of the Moon.
Oh, interesting.
Dark Side of the
That is
Moon.
a great one. Although I gotta tell you, I may be more of a Wall guy. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I for some reason I don't get burned out on Dark Side of the Moon songs, but I've gotten
Oh,
burned
okay.
out on Comfortably Numb, et cetera, et cetera,
Yeah. 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 It's true,
unlike
actually.
hell. But I just Dark Side of the Moon is because it's universally we can all relate to it.
Yeah. I agree.
Feeling of going mad, money, time, all that stuff. To
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
it's
That's true.
so there you go.
Well,
That's it.
I think that was a very strong list you put together.
Solid list.
There you go.